Wet your hands with water. Apply soap, rub your hands palm to palm and wash the backs of both hands and in between your fingers. Then palm to palm with fingers interlocked. Clasp your hands together and rub. And then clean around the thumbs too. Rub your fingertips in the palms of your hands and finish off with the wrists. Rinse your hands really well with water and dry them thoroughly with a paper towel. Use the towel to turn off the tap. Your hands are now clean.
Good morning, students. This is AZIZI. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to discuss the rest of the paragraphs of Ranga's marriage. This chapter is from your English book SNAPSHOTS. I had covered already 4 paragraphs in our online meeting, but some of the students, they did not attend the meeting, so that's the reason I had to do this video all over again, including those previous some paragraphs, starting from the where I had left in the part 2 video. So I'm going to read the paragraphs on the page number 19, starting from I was distressed. I was distressed that the boy who I thought would make a good husband had decided to remain a bachelor. After chatting for a little longer, Ranga left. I made up my mind right then that I would get him married. So if you remember, Ranga had come to visit the narrator at his home, and there they had conversation. Ranga gave some examples. He gave his reason why he didn't want to get married. So on that, the narrator was quite disappointed, because he thought that Ranga would be a very good husband. But Ranga had decided to remain a bachelor. So after doing a little talk, Ranga left. And when he left, the narrator made up his mind. He decided that he would get him married. Rama Rao's niece, a pretty girl of 11, had come to stay with him. She was from a big town, so she knew how to play the veena and the harmonium. She also had sweet voice. So there was a person called Rama Rao. His niece, she was a pretty girl, beautiful girl, and her age was 11. She had come to stay with Rama Rao. Because she was from a big town, so she knew how to play veena and harmonium, and also she had lovely voice. Both her parents had died and her uncle had brought her home. Ranga was just the boy for her, and she the most suitable bride for him. So because her parents had died, so her uncle had brought her home. And the narrator thought that she could be the most suitable bride for Ranga, and Ranga could be the right boy for her. Since I was frequent visitor to Rama Rao's place, the girl was quite free with me. I completely forgot to mention her name, Ratna. So now the narrator tells that her name was Ratna. Whose name? That girl, the niece of Rama Rao. And because the narrator used to go there at Rama Rao's house, so she had become she didn't hesitate to talk to him. So whenever he went there, she came and talked. The very next morning, I went to their house and told Rama Rao's wife, "I'll send some buttermilk for you. Ask Ratna to fetch it." So, just next morning, next day, the narrator went to Rama Rao's house and he told his wife that he would send some buttermilk. Buttermilk, here we call it lassi, a charge, if you know. So the narrator said that he would send some buttermilk for her, for Rama Rao's wife, and he asked Rama Rao's wife to send Ratna to fetch it, to bring it. Ratna came. It was a Friday, so she was wearing a grand sari. I told her to sit in my room and requested her to sing a song. I sent for Ranga. While she was singing the song, Krishnamurti in front of my eyes, Ranga reached the door. He stopped at the threshold. He did not want the singing to stop but was curious to see the singer. Carefully he peeped in. The light coming into the room was blocked. Ratna looked up and seeing a stranger there, abruptly stopped. So, because the narrator had asked Rama Rao's wife to send Ratna to fetch the buttermilk, so she came. She went there. She went to the narrator's house, and that was Friday, and she was wearing a very good sari. So narrator asked her to sit in his room, and he also requested her to sing a song, and at the same time he sent someone to call Ranga. So when the girl Ratna started singing, she was singing. At the same time, Ranga arrived. Ranga just reached the door. He stopped at the threshold where the room begins from. So at the we call it a chaukat in Hindi. So she was singing. Ratna was singing a song, Krishnamurti, and at that moment, Ranga just came there and he stopped at the threshold. Because Ranga didn't want that whoever was singing in the room, that person stopped singing. So he just stopped at the door, at the threshold. And because the voice was melodious, quite nice, so he became curious to know that who was singing inside. So he just carefully tried to peep in. And when he tried that, obviously he blocked the sunlight coming to that room, and then Ratna came to know that someone was standing at the door. So she suddenly stopped singing. So she saw that a stranger person is standing at the door. So she suddenly stopped singing. Suppose you buy the best quality mango, you eat it slowly, savoring its peel before biting into the juicy flesh. You do not want to waste any part of it. Before you take another bite, the fruit slips out of your hand and falls to the ground. How do you feel? Ranga's face showed the same disappointment when the singing stopped. So in this chapter, the narrator, the writer, had taken so many references, he had given so many examples, if you remember from the beginning. So here also, he is just giving an example that, for example, you are enjoying a very juicy, nice fruit like mango, and obviously you had taken the cover, you know that, and you savoring means is enjoying the taste. Savoring means enjoying the taste. It's peel. So the peel is like a pulp, the fruit pulp. So after taking out the cover of any food, when you are enjoying the pulp, the peel. So that's what the narrator is saying. So just imagine that you have a very nice ripe mango in your hand, and you are enjoying the taste of that mango. And suddenly what happened, when you are about to take another bite, then it just slips out from your hand, means it drops. So how would you feel? So exactly what the narrator is saying, that's how Ranga's face showed. So he became quite disappointed because obviously the singing was stopped due to he had arrived there. "You sent for me?" he asked as he came in and sat on a chair. So now he entered in the room and he asked the narrator if he had asked him to come. Ratna stood at a distance, her head lowered. Ranga repeatedly glanced at her. Once our eyes met and he looked very embarrassed. No one spoke for a long while. So now, see, I'll just take you back when the the narrator and Ranga was talking. And Ranga gave his reason and example that he didn't want to marry because of love, this reason. So now you see that after seeing a beautiful girl, so he was just looking at her. So Ratna, because obviously she had never met Ranga and he was a stranger for her, so like all other women or girls do in our country, so they don't talk or they don't react. So she just stayed lowering her head. But Ranga was just continuously looking at her. And when the narrator looked at him, obviously he was already looking at Ranga. So when both of them, when their eyes met, means when they looked each other, so Ranga got embarrassed. And nobody spoke for long while. It was my coming in that stopped the singing, let me leave. So now Ranga spoke first, and he said that was it him, that because of him the singing was stopped. So he said that okay, he would leave then. Words, mere words. The fellow said he would leave but did not make a move. How can one expect words to match actions in these days of Kali Yuga? Kali Yuga is like we call Kali Yuga. So words, mere words. Mere is just to show, is just to emphasize. So there were no words at all. Ranga said that he would leave because he was the one when he came there and the singing was stopped. He said that he was going to leave, but he didn't make any move. So he didn't leave. He didn't, leave that place. He was still sitting in the chair. And now the narrator is saying that how can one expect words to match action in these days of Kali Yuga? So he's just referring that we can't expect anybody, matching actions in these days of Kali Yuga. Ratna ran inside, overcome by shyness. So obviously Ratna had also realized that what Ranga was thinking about her, so she got shy and she just ran inside. Now listen this paragraph carefully because it's again a reference of it's not very famous story. I'll just read it for you, and it's very short reference where a goat was taking shelter in a temple because a lion wanted to eat it. So the goat, obviously lion had not seen the goat, and so lion was standing at the like the gate, the the entrance of the cave. So there was some conversation. I'll just read the paragraph and I'll explain you. So it's nothing to do with the lion and goat. It's just an example, and so let's read this first. After a while, Ranga asked, "Who is that girl, Swami? Who's that inside?" The lion wanted to know. The he-goat who had taken shelter in the temple replied, "Does it matter who I am? I'm a poor animal who has already eaten 9 lions. I have vowed to eat one more. Tell me, are you male or female?" The lion fled the place in fear, it seems. So now, like I said, the narrator is just giving a reference of an infamous story when Ranga asked, "Who's that girl?" So he just inquired about that girl, about Ratna. So on that, the narrator just, he was talking to himself, giving reference to a story. So according to him, it doesn't matter really that who was inside, but he's referring that he had already done so many marriages. He had arranged so many marriages. So now he had decided to get one more done. Like the he-goat, I said, "What does it matter to either of us who she is? I'm already married and you aren't the marrying kind." So now, just like the reference given above, the narrator acted like the he-goat. So what he said? Well, he said that it doesn't really matter who was inside, because according to the situation, the narrator was already married and Ranga had already decided to remain a bachelor. So it doesn't really matter that who she was, whether she was married or not, it doesn't really matter. So that's the thing the narrator had tried to explain here, giving a reference of an infamous story. Very hopefully he asked, "She isn't married then?" His voice did not betray his excitement, but I knew it was there. So now you can see in these words the feeling has just come in Ranga's heart. Now he was excited and he was curious to know more about the girl. So hopefully he asked, "So is that means that she is not married?" And in his voice there was excitement. He didn't show it, but obviously the narrator knew that, had that feeling that Ranga was quite excited. "She was married a year ago." His face shriveled like a roasted brinjal. After a while, Ranga left, saying, "I must go, I have work at home." So now here the narrator is trying to play a trick on him. So he had already started that trick when he went to Ramarao's house to tell Ramarao's wife that he would send buttermilk and ask Ratna to come and fetch it. So that's where the trick had started already. Narrator had been playing this. So now again he told a lie that Ratna was already married. So on hearing that, Ranga's face shriveled like shrunken, just like a brinjal, the vegetable, bagan we call it here. So when you roast it in fire, so you must have seen how it, what happens to the brinjal. So it get shrinked. So that's how his face become. In Hindi we say that muh pachak gaya sun ke. So this is what the narrator is trying to say, that when he heard that Ratna was already married a year ago, so his face become like the roasted brinjal. After a while, Ranga left saying, "I must go, I have work at home." So, well, obviously he was disappointed to hear that and he wanted to leave. He just pretended that he had some work at home. I went to our Shastri the next morning and told him, "Keep everything ready to read the stars, I will come later." I tutored him in all that I wanted him to say. So now the next trick from the narrator, that he went to the Shastri, who knows about the books and things. He reads stars and things. He get marriages arranged. You know what I mean. So he went there next morning and told him to get everything ready to read somebody's future and past, like reading stars and telling about future and present and past. He also tutored him. So he also taught him something what he had to do. So we'll find out later on. Let's see what happens next. I found no change in Ranga when I met him that afternoon. "What's the matter? You seem to be lost in thought," I said. So the narrator met Ranga in the afternoon and he asked that if there was anything wrong with him, because he seemed to be lost in thought. Nothing's wrong, believe me. So it's just general conversation like we have. Sometimes some people ask, "Oh, why are you looking like that? Why are you looking upset?" So, "Oh, nothing like that. It's nothing serious. Forget it." So this kind of some conversation they were having. "Headache? Come, let's go and see a doctor." So on that, the narrator asked if he had headache, and if yes, then he wanted to take him to doctor. "I have no headache. My usual self." So Ranga pretended, no, it's all right, I'm okay, don't worry about it. "I went through the same thing when the process of choosing a girl for me was going on. But I don't think that could be a reason for your present condition." Ranga stared at me. So now, well, the narrator is playing trick after trick. So now he started saying that he had the same situation when his marriage, choosing a selection of girls was in process at that time. So he had the same situations, he had the same feeling. Ranga stared at me. So on saying that, Ranga just looked at the narrator. "Come, let's go and see Shastri," I suggested. "We will find out whether Guru and Shani are favorable for you or not." So he advised Ranga to go and see Shastri. And he also said, oh, okay, let's go and find out whether Guru and Shani, so he's talking about the stars, and let's find out whether they are favorable or not. Ranga accompanied me without any protest, so he just, like he started going with the narrator without any protest. So he was also willing to go and find out. As soon as Shastri saw me, he exclaimed, "What a surprise, Shama! I haven't seen you for a long time." So as soon as Shastri saw the narrator, he just said like that, "What a surprise!" And he said that he hadn't seen him for a long time. Shama is none other than your servant, the narrator of this tale. So now, the name of the narrator. So he's saying that, okay, excuse me. So he's saying that none other than your servant, the Shama is the narrator of this tale. I got angry and shouted, "What? Only this morning Shastri completed my sentence. You finished all your work and are now free to visit me. Had he not done so, I would have ruined our plan by bursting like grains that are kept in the sun to dry. I was extremely careful of what I said afterward." So Shastri was right, because the narrator had already taught him how to pretend when he comes with Ranga. So, but the narrator had forgotten himself, and he was going to say that he had already visited Shastri in the morning, but he stopped. So from there, the Shastri just completed that the sentence. So now the narrator was thinking that he was going to ruin all his plans himself, just like bursting like grains that are kept in the sun to dry. So when you must have seen that when we put grains, we like grains on the roof to get dried in the sunshine, and obviously if there is any burst, so what happened, obviously they will be scattered. So now then he became quite careful for whatever he said afterwards. Shastri turned to Ranga. "When did the young son of our accounting clerk come home? What can I do for him? It's very rarely that he visits us." So after conversing with the narrator, Shastri just addressed to Ranga and asked that when he had come, and he asked also that what he could do for him. And because obviously Ranga rarely visited Shastri, so he was just pretending. It was just part of game, what the narrator had already taught him to do. Take out your paraphernalia. Our Rangappa seems to have something on his mind. Can you tell us what's worrying him? Shall we put your science of astrology to the test? So now the narrator asked Shastri to take out his, the related instruments, like we said, Pothi, Patra, and whatever he has got to find out to read the future and past. And he told Shastri that Rangappa, something was bothering him. He had something in his mind, and he asked Shastri if he could find out with the help of his instruments. And he also challenged his astrology. There was authority in my voice as I spoke to Shastri. He took out 2 sheets of paper, some cowries, and a book of palmyra leaves, saying, "Ours is an ancient science, Aya. There is a story to it, but I won't tell you that story now. This is not Harikatha. which allows you to tell a story within a story. You may get bored. I'll tell it to you some other time. So he obviously, like the way he said to Shastri, it was kind of like a permission for him to do whatever he got to do to find out this thing. So Shastri took out 2 sheets of paper, some cowries. Cowries are like shells, they are found in ocean, and a book of palmyra. Palmyra is palm tree leaves. And he started saying about he wanted to say something, but he said that okay, it was not Harikatha. Harikatha is a story of Lord, and he didn't want to upset make them bored. So he said that he would tell this story later on some other time. Shastri moved his lips fast as he counted on his fingers and then asked, "What's your star?" Ranga didn't know. Never mind, Shastri indicated with a shake of his head. He did some more calculations before saying in a serious tone, "It's about a girl." So Shastri was just pretending because he was told to do so. So he just started counting on his fingers like the saint does, the Shastri does. So, and he asked about the stars of Ranga, but Ranga didn't know his stars. So he just nodded his head, indicating with his head that, okay, it doesn't really matter, forget it. And after doing some more calculations and findings, he just uttered a word very seriously, that it was about a girl. I had been controlling my laughter all this while, but now I burst out laughing. I turned to Ranga, exactly what I had said. So because the narrator knew that Shastri was just like pretending, doing all these things in front of him, and he already knew, so he was just controlling his laugh. He wanted to laugh, but he was trying to control it, but he bursted into laugh, but he turned to Ranga, saying in general way that, oh, that's what exactly I had told him, that it must be about girl. Who's the girl? It was your humble servant who asked the question. Shastri thought for a while before replying, she probably has the name of something found in the ocean. So now, because they have been just playing trick on Ranga, so they were pretending everything, and the narrator requested Shastri to tell who she was, the girl. And so Shastri just pretended again, thinking, and then he replied. He said that, well, she probably has the name of something found in the ocean. So he was trying to give hint. So Ranga and the narrator could just like say something, name the girl's name. So they started general conversation. I'm sure that we also do this sometimes when we are in discussion to find out something. So everybody start giving suggestion. Oh, it could be this, it could be that. So just like that, the conversation is started. Kamla, maybe. Could it be Pachi? Moss? Must it be Moss if it is not Kamla? Why not Pearl or Ratna, the precious stone? So moss, M-O-S-S. Moss is a small plant. It's a green plant, flowerless, which has no flower. So it's just like grass, but basically they are plant. So, so they were just guessing and they were pretending, Pachi, mouse, and definitely it would be mouse, if not Kamla. Then he suggested that, okay, maybe pearl, the pearl, moti, and ratna. Ratna is also kind of a stone. These two are found in ocean. So, Ratna, the girl in Rama Rao's house in Ratna, tell me, is there any chance of our negotiations bearing fruit? So, now they named finally Ratna, and he also asked that if there was any chance, if they negotiate, like if they tried it, then if there was any fruit, means if there was any result, positive result of their negotiation. Definitely, he said after thinking for some time. So Shastri said definitely. There was surprise on Ranga's face and some happiness, I noticed it. So now Ranga was in dilemma. He was confused. He was happy as well as a little bit surprised and sad, which the narrator could notice on his face. But that girl is married, I said. Then I turned to him. His face had fallen. So, after realizing that the girl was already married a year ago, Ranga's face had fallen. Well, now you need to remember this, that when Ranga visited the narrator house, when Ratna was singing song, so in that conversation the narrator had told Ranga that she was already married. So after realizing this, Ranga's face had fallen. I don't know all that. There may be some other girl who is suitable. I only told you what our Shastra indicated, Shastri said. So, Shastri again pretended and said that there could be some other girl. Maybe not only this girl Ratna, so it could be some other girl also. So Shastri had told them what the Shastra, what the books were indicating him. We left the place. On the way, we passed by Rama Rao's house. Ratna was standing at the door. I went in alone and came out a minute later. So they left that place, the Shastri's place, and they were just going. So on the way, they come across to Rama Rao's house, and Ratna was standing at the door. So the narrator, he went inside and come out just a minute later. Surprising, this girl isn't married, it seems. Someone told me that the other day that she was. What Shastri told us has turned out to be true after all. But Rangappa, I can't believe that you have been thinking of her. Swear on the name of Madhavacharya and tell me, is it true what Shastri said? So now again, the narrator is pretending, and when he went inside, he already knew that the girl was not married. So he went there and come out just after a minute and said, oh, look, it's surprising that Ratna is not married. And so he was just referring to Shastri's word, that his word has turned out to be true after all. But now he's saying that Rangappa, he's just addressing to Rangappa, that the narrator could not believe that Rangappa was thinking about that girl. And he swear on the name of Madhavacharya. It's about philosophy of Madhavacharya. Here it's written, an exponent of Vedantic philosophy from South India. So he just sweared on the name of Madhavacharya and asked Rangappa if it was true what Shastri had said. I don't know whether anyone else would have been direct, Ranga admitted. There is greater truth in that Shastra than we imagine. What he said is absolutely true. So now, you see, Rangappa admitted. In fact, it was all a drama, a play, trick played by the narrator. And he taught to Shastri also what he had to pretend and what he had to do. But Rangappa seemed to believe all these things. Now he believed in the Shastra also, and he's saying, admitting that, yes, so it was all true. He was thinking about that girl. That thought was only bothering him. I don't know. Okay, Shastri was at the well when I went there that evening. I said, "So, Shastri girl, you repeated everything I had taught you without giving rise to any suspicion. What a marvelous Shastra yours is." He didn't like it at all. So, the same evening, he went to Shastri and he just made a joke to Shastri that he exactly said whatever he had taught to him, and he had done very good job. "What are you saying? What you said to me was what I could have found out myself from the Shastra. Don't forget, I developed on the hints you had given me." So now Shastriji is saying that, okay, whatever you wanted, I could have done that myself using my Shastra, using my books. So he's saying that the narrator had given only hints. So whatever he did, he had already developed himself. Tell me, is this what a decent man says? Rangappa had come the other day to invite me for dinner. What's the occasion? I asked. It's Shama's birthday. He is 3. It's not a nice name, Shama, I said. I'm like a dark piece of oil cake. Why did you have to give that golden child of yours such a name? What a childish couple you are, Ratna and you. So now can you find out what had happened now? Yes. So they got married already. Who? Rangappa and Ratna. So Rangappa had come to invite the narrator for dinner, and when the narrator asked that what was the occasion, so Rangappa told him that it was Shama's birthday. And now who's the Shama now? Because one Shama was the narrator himself. If you remember in the previous paragraph, not the very previous, they were, I think, on the other page. And now this Shama is the son of Rangappa, and he is now 3 years old. So he was going to celebrate birthday. So obviously Rangappa has named his son after the narrator's name, Shama. So on that, narrator is just trying to tell him, well, it's not fact, but obviously he didn't mean it. But normally in general we all said, oh, why you done that? So he was just saying that why, what childish couple you are, Ratna and you, why you have given this name to him. So he didn't really mean that to say. I know it is English custom of naming the child after someone you like. Your wife is 8 months pregnant now. Who's there to help your mother to cook? So now another fact you got to know this, that the first child was already 3 years old, whose name was Shama, and Ratna was again 8 months pregnant, means she was expecting a baby. And the narrator asked that who was there at home to help her to cook. My sister has come with her. I went there for dinner. Shyama rushed to me when I walked in and put his arms round my legs. I kissed him on his cheek and placed a ring on his tiny little finger. Okay, I forgot to explain you the first line on this page. Basically, what the narrator said here, that is a English custom that popular in England, English country, that they name their son, the babies, after the name of somebody who they like. So when he reached there, when he went there for dinner, Shyama, that boy of Ranga, he just rushed to him and he just put his arms round his legs and he kissed him on his cheek and placed a ring, a birthday gift, in his tiny little finger. Allow me to take leave of you, reader. I'm always here ready to serve you. You were not bored, I hope. So now the narrator is addressing to us, and want to take permission to finish here the tale, the story, and he's referring to be a servant of the readers, and he's always there to help us. Okay, that was all. I hope you understood well. I know it's quite long chapter, but don't forget that there are so many references the narrator has given, which is quite sometimes it became difficult to understand, to find out the exact meanings. But nothing to worry, I have explained everything. But still, if there's anything left, you can always contact me. I'm always there to help you, just like the narrator. And hope to see you again very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.